I have not covered Trias in a little bit, so let's jump right into it with no delay here. Trias is actually pretty easy to look at because it is following. Let me go down to the 15-minute chart, and I just need one EMA on. It's the daily 10 EMA. This was for a VIP that I did this, so I want to delete it first. All right, here we go. Okay. In general terms, the daily 10 is your general direction up or direction down. If price is above it, then Trias is going up. If price is below it, then it's going down. There are some nuances to it. If it's the first time going above this line, before you can determine Trias is going up, you have to use it as support. So if you go above it and come back to it, you could easily crash back below it, just like what happened here. It could not use it as support, and it was the first time going above the line. There are some rules to playing one EMA when a crypto is literally playing a single EMA, which is honestly what you want. I think it was ApeCoin was also playing this exact EMA. This is what determines buyers and sellers when they're stepping in, and they're all looking at the same thing, which is honestly what you want. You want to trade with retail. You don't want to trade against freaking algos. You'll get your ass kicked over time. All right, so now that it's gone below, right, it's going to hit something, some type of support. I'll identify this later, but the inverse was going to happen. When it comes up to touch this white line, which is the daily 10 EMA, you can't guarantee it's going to be used as resistance. So for example, it went below it. You can't guarantee it because it did fly back above, right? But you are prepared for it to be used as resistance. And by the time Trias can get back up here, these are the two levels that I see Trias at, or the daily 10, and roughly where Trias will potentially find resistance. As the white line, let me make this not so opaque. Right there. As the white line is going through this box, it's going to be roughly there, and this is where Trias is potentially going to find some major resistance and then continue its journey down. It is possible, just like back here, that it flies above and you then use it as support. Okay, that's possible, but you are prepared for it exactly at these levels. You really, at this time, when it hits this, there are only two options. So you naturally feel like more in control because only two things can happen. Either it uses it as resistance, right? Or it gets fully above it and uses it as support. I guess the third one is it gets above it and then fails it. So I guess there are three. There are three possibilities here. And I'm running over and my wife's coming in. So I probably need to get off here. I'm a half hour over. But, so what is Trias going to bounce off of? Well, just look left. Look for some horizontal and then try to throw out some EMAs and see what's happening here. So, this wick down here might be too low. I don't know if it'll go all that way, but I probably want this on my chart because that's a big line. Once it hits that, it'll probably bounce to some degree, but I don't think it'll go straight there. I would say all of these wicks here, yeah, this will make price bounce most likely. Boom, boom, and you could get a nice bounce from this area. Okay, I have it labeled. And then you're going to find resistance in that area. That's it. And you'll be able to adjust to how you're thinking once you see price interact. So you can go down to the 3-minute candles. How is price interacting with this line? So for example, here it went below it, which means your next oscillation up, you're going to make most likely a lower high and then crash back below it, then use it as resistance, which once again is exactly what happened. See this? It's the same thing on every coin. Once you lose the 10 EMA, which means you go below it, your next one is likely going to be a lower high, and then you go below it again, then use it as resistance, and that's when it really starts accelerating to the downside, which is exactly what happened. But you're going to be able to adjust how the small candles are interacting with this line, similar to how you could have easily adjusted right here, just interpreting, it finally went below, as opposed to this. It used it as support. So since it used it as support, it actually had permission to actually make a higher high than this one, but it didn't, but it had permission to. Here, it went below it. So technically, it did not have permission on the next single oscillation up. Oscillation like 1, 2, 3, like this. On the next oscillation here, it did not have permission to go above this, and it didn't. Which means, since it confirmed didn't, that means you're going to go below it again and then use it as resistance, which is a very common play. So yeah, just use the daily 10 on this. It's honestly is, if this had better liquidity, I'd probably want to trade this. This is fantastic. Like, this would be potentially just as profitable as, or potentially profitable enough to consider not trading futures, but you can't really trade to the downside on this or make money on the downside. But anyway, so that is how I would play Trias, horizontals, and the daily 10, and that's really all you need right now. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need MACD. You don't need Stokes. You don't, I mean, well, Stokes for low time frames for the oscillations, right? So, for example, back here, the Stokes would have been nice for, okay, now that I got a lower high, are the Stokes saying, hey, the oscillation's going to end? Sure. Okay, now it's going to come down here. So Stokes are always kind of handy for timing, but yeah, daily 10, horizontals, and you're good to go. All right, cool. Yeah, my wife is Mexican too, and she's telling me to go. I got to get out of here. We'll see you all later.